Chapter 18, Rendezvous in Roma. Leo gripped the Fiat 500's dashboard, his knuckles white. "I can't believe we stole a turbo Fiat 500, shouted Leo, the wind buffeting his face as they zipped through the narrow Italian streets. "Correction, we're test driving a turbo Fiat 500, shouted Abby. She peered out at the car's shiny red exterior. "Personally, I would have preferred black." Leo glanced over his shoulder, expecting to see a cavalcade of police cars in hot pursuit, but there were none. Not yet, anyway. He noticed Ernie's legs sticking rigidly from the back seat. "What did you mean before?" shouted Leo over the screech of an engine. "About Ernie not being right." "I'll explain in a minute," said Abby, checking the rear vision mirror. "This is going to be a short journey. We just had to get away from those mutated meatheads." "Where are we going?" said Leo. "Somewhere we can read the notebook," said Abby. "What notebook?" replied Leo. Abby reached into her jacket and pulled out the notebook she had found in the back room at Haunted Rodders and tossed it into Leo's lap. "This one. It has to have a clue in it about where to find Gonzales." Leo tried to read it, but with the wind billowing through the open top of the convertible, the pages fluttered erratically. "Maybe we should close the spider!" The Fiat 500 was fast, but, unbeknown to Leo and Abby, it had not been fast enough to dodge Mungo and Rhino, who had jumped onto the rear bumper bar as they'd whizzed past. Spider Mungo was climbing up Ernie's legs in the back seat, with Rat Rhino still straddling his back. Abby slammed on the brakes, sending Mungo careening into Leo's headrest, and Rhino flying straight up into the air. Mungo crumpled to the floor. He shrank to half his size and scuttled under Leo's seat, while Rhino sailed up overhead. Abby hit the accelerator again, just as Rhino dropped back down to earth. He bounced off the steering wheel and landed in her lap with his teeth bared. Abby screamed. Leo yelled. Rhino squealed ferociously, his pink eyes glistening with rodent rage. Abby swung the car suddenly, plummeting them straight down a set of steps. Leo clung on desperately as the car jutted violently. They were headed straight towards an enormous fountain in the centre of the piazza. But Leo was more concerned about finding Mungo. The idea of being in the car together with an enormous spider with Mungo's revenge-filled brain was horrifying. The Fiat bounced onto the piazza as Rhino snapped ferociously at Abby's hands, forcing her to drive one-handed, while using her free hand to repeatedly smack him away. At any other time, the piazza would have been packed with tourists, but the so-called animal virus had driven people inside, and it was deserted. Rhino was rabidly persistent, snapping again and again at Abby's fingers on the steering wheel. Ignoring his search for Mungo, Leo reached across and tried to help Abby steady the steering wheel. But at that exact moment, Mungo surged up suddenly from under Leo's seat and tried to bite him between his legs. The sound that burst from Leo's mouth at the sight of Mungo's glistening arachnid fangs jabbing at him was an explosive combination of every bad word he could think of in every language spoken. In one move, Leo unclipped his seatbelt, jumped up on his seat, and grabbed the closest thing he could to fend off Mungo's attack. Unfortunately, the closest thing within reach was Rhino, who found himself being used as a rodent-shaped club to pound Mungo back under the seat. The car was filled with screaming and squealing and the crunching of rat bones and clanging of fangs. Using all his strength to cling to the squirming Rhino rat, Leo smacked away Mungo's relentless assaults. The edge of the leather seat was quickly shredded with each downward jab of Mungo's fangs. Rhino, meanwhile, scratched at Leo with his enormous claws. "Everything about this sucks!" yelled Leo. Then Abby drove the Fiat into the fountain. Leo was flung forward, squashing Rhino against the dashboard and slamming his feet down onto Mungo's legs, pinning him to the floor mat. In the chaos of the crash, Leo didn't notice Ernie's petrified body catapult up out of the back seat, sail through the air and land with a watery plop on the other side of the fountain. Rhino flopped limply against the gear stick, breathing heavily, but Mungo continued his assault. Despite the fact that Leo had stood on 3 of his legs, he moved with an assassin's speed. He reared up his enormous fangs, ready to deliver a death strike to Leo's thigh. Suddenly, Abby plunged something into Mungo's back. A biro. The beetle biro. The remaining weapon Oric and Echo had given them. "Oops," said Abby, pulling the biro out. Mungo's arachnid body flailed violently, his legs becoming floppy as licorice. He turned with an enormous pop. His legs and fangs shrank instantly, and he was suddenly a tiny dark brown beetle, barely bigger than Leo's thumbnail. "Dung beetle," said Abby matter-of-factly, picking up Mungo and holding him with her thumb and forefinger, as his legs clawed in the air. "Suits him." There was an ear-splitting squeal as Rhino sprang towards Leo's face, with lightning-fast reflexes that surprised even himself. Leo snatched the beetle biro and jabbed it into Rhino's stomach. The effect was like a balloon deflating. Rhino turned with a squeak and a shudder, transforming into a dung beetle and scrambling straight into Leo's jeans. Leo shouted and writhed violently up out of his seat, tugging and pulling at his clothes. He searched desperately for Rhino, but even as a dung beetle, he was frustratingly nimble. A girl's voice called from across the piazza. "Leo?" said the voice. "Leo Lennox? Is that you?" Leo peered across the piazza, still scrambling to get to Rhino. His heart rose and sank simultaneously. Jogging towards him, waving, was Lily Cummings. Oh, I wonder what Lily Cummings is doing in Rome, and how she got there, and if she's figured out that there is an animal virus or Turner's going on. I didn't read the end of the second book, so I don't know if she knows or not. Our next chapter is called Chapter 19, Bugging Out.